Here in Paris, the French multinational Lafarge has gone on trial, accused of paying the Islamic State group and other jihadists protection money to protect its factories during the Syrian civil war. In the US, the French firm has already pleaded guilty of conspiring to provide material support to terrorist organisations and agreed to pay a huge fine in what was the first case of such a charge against a corporation. In France, the company could face a fine of up to 1.2 million euros if found guilty of funding terrorism, and much more if it's found to have breached sanctions. Let's cross now to Charlottes Hughes, who's at the courthouse. Charlotte, tell us more about what the company is actually accused of and what led to this trial.
Of course, so this trial marks a milestone in a 9-year-long legal battle, and it will see the company as a corporate entity and several former employees appear in court on charges of breaching international sanctions and funding terrorist organisations. They're suspected of having done so in order to keep a plant in northern Syria operating during the country's civil war. So back in 2012, when the conflict intensified, Lafarge evacuated foreign workers from the plant in question, but continued to run it with its Syrian workers, whereas other multinationals closed their factories. Then a few years later, in 2016, Le Monde reported that Lafarge made deals with armed groups, including the Islamic State, in order to keep the plant operating in 2013 and 2014, paying them millions of euros, so during the height of the war. And soon after, a few years later in 2016, Le Monde reported that Lafarge made deals, soon after that report transpired, anti-corruption groups and 11 former Syrian employees filed a criminal complaint, and then a probe was launched, which brings us to the trial today. It's set to last until December the 16th, and during that time we're expecting to hear from some of the former Syrian employees who filed that complaint. Some say they endured kidnappings and threats to their life as they were working at the plant during the war. Now, Lafarge, as you say, could face a fine of around 1 million euros if found guilty of funding terrorist organisations, and much more than that if found to have breached sanctions. The Swiss group Holcim, which purchased Lafarge in 2015, says it has no knowledge of those alleged dealings.
And it's not the first such investigation Lafarge has faced, is it, Charlotte?
No, it is not. So back in 2022, during a separate investigation in the US, Lafarge admitted that its Syrian subsidiary paid groups, including the Islamic State, in a bid to keep the Syrian plant running as the war escalated. The firm then agreed to pay a penalty of more than 600 million euros. So it will be interesting to see if a similar admission is made this time around. Now, finally, Lafarge is also facing separate charges here in Paris of complicity in crimes against humanity as part of that probe into how exactly it managed to keep the plant running during the Syrian civil war. So the trial starting today looks to be by no means the final chapter in the company's legal woes.
Charlottes Hughes reporting there. Thank you.